Joining us. Great to see you. Um, Chelsea's making her walk from the back to the front. We have been going through the Gospels. We went through all four Gospels. So now this week we are not going through an additional Gospel. But uh, before we get into the Scripture and really just start walking through the stories of the Gospels, we do have a particular Gospel that we are going to spend the majority of our time in. And as Chelsea moves herself off the screen, do you remember what gospel in particular that we're going to spend most of our time in? Not John. Matthew. We are going to spend most of our time in the Gospel of Matthew. And which is a gospel written to the Jews. You're not going to need that. It's going to be okay. It's written to the Jews. Do you remember the word that we had? Whoa, 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 whoa. Mumser or Mamser. The actual is Mamser. But it means the outcast, the forgotten, um, the gospel to the forgotten. And so we're going to lean into that. Um, but before we do, we want to spend some time with geography. Have you ever had someone tell you a story and they include like this place and that place, and in your mind you're just going,
That's pretty much my life with you.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's my life with you.
I have no context of what that town looks like or where that town even is on a map.
Yes. I'm going to state it again. That is my life with you.
Very much so. I am a descriptive storyteller and will reference many things by things that are around them. And I recognize the things and can describe. And Chelsea's like, don't know where that is. Don't know what you're talking about. I know where that is, but I don't know that thing over there. So, do you feel that way reading in the Gospels? Like you read, he was in Capernaum, and then you're like, okay, you imagine just a city, a place.
It never stresses me out that I don't know where it is.
Well, um, that's a great point. One of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the geography of this region, and because I think we can conceptualize what's happening here. This is not the area that would be all of Jerusalem, not even close. This is in the northern part of Judea. It's really not Judea, is it? In Israel, it's the northern part of Israel. This is like Nazareth is over here. This is the area of the Galilee. Um, Down south here is where Jerusalem is. There is a river that runs out of, well, river is a strong term for the Jordan River. It's really a dirty creek that runs from the Sea of Galilee all the way to where? From sea to sea.
Shining Sea?
Dead Sea. The Dead
Oh,
Sea.
Dead Sea. I thought you meant from sea to shining.
It's going to run down into the Dead Sea. Remember we talked about John the Baptist baptized Jesus, I think about a few miles before the Jordan runs into the Dead Sea. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about this region because I think it's going to give us clarity. So here's a map of the region. There's some specific places that are highlighted here. What is the name of that triangle?
I'm going to guess it's not Bermuda. Mount Arbel?
Mount Arbel.
Oh. Okay.
Mount Arbel. In a minute, I'm going to talk about these spaces based off of this place right here, Mount Arbel. because in just a minute, we're going to see some pictures. And we're going to talk about these pictures that come from the top of Mount Arbel. It's going to describe this space. Okay, from this geography is going to help us understand the story and understand kind of how this goes. We are going to talk about these cities from the east, from the west to the east. So we're going to kind of read this thing left to right, okay? Obviously, Jesus was from Nazareth, yes? That's where he's recognized as being from. He grew up there. So when we see Jesus and his ministry, most of his ministry, we're going to get to it in a minute, but most of his ministry happens in this area that we see. And so here from Mount Arbel, we're going to see a picture from Mount Arbel looking out. At the base of Mount Arbel is a community called Magdala. Why would Magdala be significant to us?
I don't know. The only thing that makes me think of is Mary Magdalene.
There you go. Mary Magdalene is from?
I'm assuming Magdala.
Magdala. We're not actually going to see it in our picture, but if you stand at the edge of Mount Arbel and you look down the slope, you're going to see Magdala. So Magdala is going to be like right here at the base of Mount Arbel. And then we're going to first look to the south. When we look to the south from Mount Arbel, we find this city. The city of Tiberias. Why? That's a bad question. You're not going to know that answer. Tiberias was the capital city of the area controlled by Herod Antipas. So Herod the Great had 3 sons. When Herod the Great died, his regions, the 3 regions, the north, the central, and the south areas that he ruled, were handed over to his sons. Herod Antipas had a space that it was his capital somewhere else, but he decided he wanted to be on the sea, so he built the city of Tiberias. So if Herod Antipas built the city of Tiberias, what group of people might you directly infer and go, that's the group of people that probably live there?
What?
There are 5 responses. There are 5 responses, Jewish responses to Hellenism. They wouldn't be Sadducees because they're not working in the temple. They wouldn't be Essenes because they're not hiding. They wouldn't be Pharisees because they're actually up here.
So it's going to be Herodians?
Herodians, it's kind of in the
I
name.
thought that was too much of an obvious answer. So I didn't
Herod built the city, so I mean.
Well, Herod didn't. His son did.
Well, Herod Antipas.
Okay.
A Herod built the city, so it makes sense that Herodians. So, kind of what is going to be their worldview and approach to the Roman world?
They like that.
They're going to welcome it all in. And they're not going to feel like welcoming all that in is going to affect what? Anything. I can have all this stuff and I can worship God freely in the same way. Yes?
Yes.
They're going to that's how they're going to feel. Yep. Matter of fact, at one point in time, Herod Antipas actually sends threats through other people, and the Pharisees come to Jesus and they say, hey, your Herod wants your head and he's willing to kill you. You need to get out of here. And in the Gospel of Luke, it says that he responds and say, you tell that fox that I'm coming to him and that I'm going to complete my task in 3 days, and he better be ready. And then it says that he goes and he ends up in Capernaum, or Capernaum, depending on how you pronounce that word. We would normally say Capernaum, right?
For sure.
So instead, he ends up in Capernaum, and we go, and many teachers and scholars would say, well, he was protecting himself, and he got out of the area. From Mount Arbel, it's a 30-minute walk to Tiberias, and from Mount Arbel, it's a 45-minute walk to Capernaum. Is he a long way away? No.
No, only 45 minutes?
45
that
minutes.
looks like a lot longer than 15 minutes more.
From here to here, 45-minute walk. From here to here, 30-minute walk. And this is a port city, and this is a port city. So you could just get in a boat, and boop, couple hours, I'm there.
Right.
If that long. Maybe 20 or 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So did Jesus actually run away
I don't think so.
and hide? No, he set up his ministry and did a lot of his ministry in Capernaum up here, right under the nose of Herod. He's like, I'm not only going to not run from you, but I'm going to move closer to you and pursue after you because that's my mission. And we miss that if we don't know the geography. So then we turn and we move from Mount Arbel, looking up to the north. Man. To the north and east here. And we see this area called the Triangle. Do you remember what we said, this area called the Triangle? There's a specific group of people that live there. The religious, no, the religious Jews. The Hasidim would be in this area. The Zealots would be one version of them, but we're going to get to where they actually end up. What would be the other group?
What does it start with?
With a P. With a PH.
Pharisees.
Pharisees.
I was like, I have no idea. Phineas was all I could think of.
The Pharisees. This is going to be the area of the Pharisees. They call it the Triangle. There's actually so we have 4 cities listed here. They make up a very good triangle. There's another one that would be in here, kind of a port city. It'd be right here, actually. I almost said it up here. No, right here. But it still just makes up a triangle. Most people would refer to either those 5 cities or these 3 cities. Chorazin, Gennesaret, Capernaum, Bethsaida. Anyway, they make a very, very clean triangle. This would be the area of the Pharisees. These are Pharisee-built cities on the northern side of the Sea of Galilee. They are going to be centered around what?
Trade? I don't know.
The Pharisee cities were all built around
The
one
temple.
thing. No, the temple is in Jerusalem. Starts with an S.
Synagogue.
Synagogue.
In my mind, it's the same thing. I know it isn't,
right?
But it is. So when I say
but it's
that,
not.
But it is.
It's the synagogue, temple, 2 different places, but
they represent the same thing.
So the synagogue.
Do they not?
No.
Never mind.
They don't make sacrifices in the synagogue. We're not a temple. Okay. So the synagogue is the central point of all of these places, and this is where the Pharisees are going to be. This is where they're going to set up shop. It's going to be so Jesus is going to interact with these people constantly. We actually get a story, and when you look at this map, they're actually in Capernaum, and he tells the disciples, hey, get in a boat. We're going to sail to Gennesaret. And you're like, when we think of it, we're like, oh, they're going to get on the sea and they're going to make their way over there. But if you look at the map, you go, well, why would we get in a boat and go out on the water when we can walk somewhere in 15 minutes? Yeah, they're going to try to avoid the crowds, and there's some interesting things that they're going to do. There's some other commands that Jesus is going to give that we're going to talk about later, but we just don't understand how close these things are together. We're actually going to see from the picture on the top of Mount Arbel, there's going to be one wide-angle picture that points this direction, and you can see all of these places all in one picture. That's how close they are together. What What else do I want to say here? These cities. So this city's opulent. It's the home capital city of Herod Antipas. These cities. What might you think of decorative decor and opulence? What level might there be here?
Probably not as much because it's Pharisee.
Yeah, it's
people.
Pharisaical.
So they don't have as much emphasis on wealth or.
Yeah, it's all stone.
Yeah.
There's no like inlaid stuff. There's no mosaics. There's no nothing. It is all dirt and stone and very simple. Matter of fact, we're going to see in the pictures in just a minute, Tiberias, still a major metropolitan today. All of these cities, if they got ransacked and destroyed at any point in time, just in ruins. They're just a pile of rocks. So Hellenism lives on vibrantly today, is kind of that picture. If we move on from the triangle here in the north and we move to the east, we find this city. Do you remember how we pronounce this city?
Gamla.
Gamla, yes. Gamla is what group of people? We talked about it extensively. This particular place is the second to last stand of a specific group of people. It's built on the side of a mountain.
Oh, yeah.
This would be the Zealots. The Zealots find their way. This is one of their fortress. This is their next to last stand. Their last stand is actually the Hebrew word for fortress. When David in the Psalm says, "The Lord is my fortress," he says the word, where did I write it? Masada. Masada means fortress. God is my Masada. God is my fortress. Masada is the final stand that the Zealots make. Gamla, the next last one, and we're going to be able to see kind of where that is in the valley that it sits in later on in pictures. And so we've got three different worldviews, three different responses to Hellenism, all right here together. It's not like you ran from one place to the next to find them. I mean, we're within an hour's walking, maybe an hour and a half. Wait, 30, 45, probably another 30. Okay, so you're 2 hours to walk from Tiberias and go from Herodian through Pharisaical cities and find your way to the Zealots. In 2 hours worth of walking, you're going to interact with all those people. Is that a really tall task for first century people to walk for 2 hours?
No, they did it every day.
They did it every day. And so, very significant happening. Now, when we head to the south, down the east side of the Sea of Galilee, we find our place to Hippos or Susita. One is the Hebrew name for it, or the Jewish name for it. One is the Roman name for it. This is one of the northernmost cities of the Decapolis. Do you remember what the Decapolis is? What's Deca mean?
It's 10. I
10.
was thinking that was hepta, but no.
Hepta would be 7.
7, yeah.
Deca, like a decade.
Yeah, I'm with you. 10.
So 10. Polis meaning city. So this would be one of the 10 cities built by who?
Herod.
Built by the Greeks.
Oh.
So there are 10 Greco-Roman cities that line this side of the Galilee. 9 of them are from where the Jordan River is to the east. Only one is an outlier that sits over here on this side of the Jordan River. The rest of them stay here. The Decapolis would represent what group of people?
Did I already say it?
They would be Romans.
Okay, so that's different than Herodians.
Yeah, these are Romans. These are pagans. These are outcasts in the worldview. Even Herodians wouldn't find their way over here. Even Herodians would not want to be associated with the Decapolis as a Jew. Like, this is where the unclean of the unclean go. This is going to be significant. We're going to see why here in a little bit. This particular space over here, they had a couple of names that they would use for it. A faraway land. They would call these people the cast out ones, or they would call this space the other side of the sea.
That's nice.
You're born on the wrong side of the railroad tracks. No, you're born on the wrong side of the sea. Is kind of how this goes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So there's a Marty Solomon, kind of a rabbinical teacher. He takes trips here regularly, and they'll have like some class and preparation stuff. And then every other year, he brings a group here, and he'll bring them to the town of Mount Arbel, the top of the city, or on top of the mountain at Mount Arbel, and he will point out and he will call out names. And if he says Hippos, his students would say the pagans or Romans. And if he pointed out here and he said, well, there's Gamla, their response would be Zealots. And if he says the triangle, their response would be Pharisees. And if he points over here to Tiberius, Herodians. Now that's 3 out of 4 responses. What responses do we not see here specifically? There are 2 more left.
The Sadducees and the Essenes.
The Sadducees and Essenes. Why would we not see them specifically referenced here?
The temple's not there?
The temple's not there. And they both function as priests, right? They both are from orders of priests. They just have different reference points. Now, that's not to say that Essenes and Sadducees would not have been interacted with here on this map. Sadducees only served in the temple for 2 weeks out of the year. So would it have been far-fetched for maybe one of them to have a place to live in, say, Chorazin, that they wouldn't own property, but maybe they would rent a place, and when there was a Shabbat service or you needed interpretation or priestly interpretation of a scripture, there happened to be a priest in town and not just a family member or a rabbi? It could be really beneficial. We don't get a whole lot of information about that, but yes, the Essenes and the Sadducees are not found here. Now, what we're going to see right here from this space, let's see what we can find here. Where are we? What is happening? We were at the wrong spot. Bang. Okay. This is a picture from the top of Mount Arbel. And now I could point out this stuff and you could be like, wow, where? I could describe it and I could say it. You could go, where? How about this? I'll just show you where they are. From this picture, at the base of the mountain down here is Magdala. Up here past these, this is the town of Gennesaret. And Capernaum would be here, Bethsaida over here, and Chorazin over here. We're even going to see Gamla back over here. So we see in this one picture, 80% of the recorded ministry of Jesus happens in this picture. Does that change your understanding of the geography of where Jesus was? 80% of the descriptions and accounts of what Jesus did in his ministry life happens in this picture. Marty Solomon takes his group of people and he takes them and walks them through here, and he takes them, there's these little 2 mountains, 2 hilltops with nothing on them right here. And they describe this as Aromas Tapas. This is a certain place. That's not actually the name for the place, but Aromas Tapas means a certain place. This is one of the only spaces that it would make sense where Jesus fed the 5,000 and gave the Sermon on the Mount. And they're like, what are we supposed to do with these guys? And feed them, send them away. And they're like, and Jesus is like, oh, it's too late. And we're out here in the middle of nowhere. Well, okay. It's like from right here. It's a 10-minute walk to either Chorazin, Gennesaret, or Capernaum. Pretty sure you can find your way there and get some food. If I had to guess. But he set them all down and fed them. This is the space where we're going to run into Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount. Beatitudes are going to be given. And now there's actually there's a church there. The Church of the Beatitudes is actually on that site. And so, again, we talked about earlier, like Jesus is going to be, they're going to be in Capernaum, and he's going to say, go get in a boat and let's sail to Bethsaida that you can walk to in 20 minutes. But let's get in a boat and go there. Huh? I mean, Gennesaret. Either way. No, it's Gennesaret. That's what he says. Sorry. I misspoke. And so, a very, very interesting happening. Matter of fact, there's also a point where he tells them to get in a boat, and he says, let's go to the Decapolis. But that's not what he says, is it? He says, we're getting in a boat, and we're going to sail to, what does he say? The other side.
The other side of the sea?
Yeah.
Oh, to the Roman area?
To the Roman area, to the Decapolis. And we go, oh, they're just going to the other side of the sea. And a Jewish kid looks at it and goes, oh, no, we're not. I will not be caught dead in the Decapolis. Like, I am not, well, way different than North Tulsa. Like, here's what it meant. In the Pharisaical world, if a Jewish person went to the Decapolis, they were unclean and had to go through ceremonial cleansing, and they were unclean for 7 days. The same length of time as a menstrual cycle. Intentionally. Because in their world, that's how unclean and unacceptable that was. You don't go near it, you don't touch it, you don't associate with it. They weren't going to be caught dead there. So it's a significant happening when Jesus says, get in the boat, we're going the other side. And we don't understand the geography and history of it, and we just go, oh, they're just crossing the lake, right? And so it changes the way that we listen. Now, this is to the south, here on this slope, this sprawling metropolis, current city. This is Tiberias, Hellenism alive and well. This is that Herodian city, capital of Herod Antipas. We're still on the top of Mount Arbel, just looking to the south instead of to the north. And when we look back over here to the north, remember we've seen all the things around here, and Capernaum is here, and we get these 4 valleys that look like 4 fingers where the water would run down through these wadis and make their way into the Sea of Galilee. In between these 2 valleys over here, we're going to zoom in just a second, is the city of Gamla. And that's where it's going to actually be found, right there. Yeah, you got a finger and a finger and a finger and a finger of these wadis, and the city of Gamla is right here in this. It looks better on here than it does on there. But this is where Gamla is. This is the last stand. Many people would say this is where Joseph of Arimathea, who ends up being Josephus, betrays the zealots. Anyway, now we're looking straight across the sea, and this is Hippos or Sosita. This is across the sea. We're still on Mount Arbel. And we're going to zoom into this particular spot right here in just a second. Why would this particular space be significant? There's only one space in the entirety of the Sea of Galilee. There's only one space because the water levels have not changed significantly in the lake for thousands of years. There's only one space that has a steep slope that runs directly into the water. Everywhere else, it has a shore or a beach that's 100 to 150 yards deep before the topography starts making its way back up. This particular space, just outside of this city, is where that slope is. Why is that significant? There's a story about Legion, yes? We are many. And they get cast out into a herd of like 3,000 pigs. And they run down the slope and into the water. Or even some versions of the story say they run off the cliff and into the water. The only place this is possible is here. So when the pig herders saw what was happening and immediately ran to town, where do you think they ran to? Hippos. Or Sosita. That's where they ran to, one of the northernmost cities of the Decapolis. Why is this stuff significant? When Jesus does miracles, when he sees the faith of people and responds to it, does he always tell them the same thing? Or does it differ? Because some people, he says, hey, go tell everybody you know, right?
And some people he says, don't tell anyone.
Some people he says, don't tell anyone. What's the difference? What changes? Why would he tell some of them, go tell everybody, and some of them, don't tell anybody? Well, if we know the geography of the area, it matters where he is. When he's over here close to the Decapolis and dealing with these pagans and speaking to them, the guy that he in the Decapolis asks him, says, let me go with you. Let me follow you. What's he tell him?
Says to sell everything he has.
He tells him to stay here.
Oh, to stay. That's not the rich man. Okay.
He says, stay here and go tell everybody what's happened. Why would he say that in the Roman world?
Because they don't know him.
How many gods do they have?
So many.
So many. And now they're presenting him as an option. Hey, you've heard of all these other gods, and all they do is demand from you. Why don't you go declare a God who showed up to you and set you free?
Where the other ones, they only worship the one true God. And so
the rest of
it was like heresy.
Yeah.
For him to say anything.
For the rest of these, they have their belief and their understanding of this is what's right and this is what's wrong. This is the only way. Are they ready to receive what Jesus is doing?
Most likely not.
So why send unprepared people into that space?
Yeah. Good point.
So when he is up here in the space of the Pharisees, especially, he says, hey, don't tell anybody what happened here.
They do anyway.
They do anyway, yes. But he tells them, that's his command. Don't say anything. Because these people aren't ready yet. They will be, but they're not ready yet. Right? Oh, you're fine. And so, this is This is going to be an important mental picture for us to have, to understand as we go through the gospel account. And again, we're focusing in the Gospel of Matthew, how this is applicable, and where he is and who he's speaking to and where these cities are found. So a neat little exercise that we'll do real quick. We didn't do a review at the beginning. We'll do something now that's a little bit different. So when we look at these areas, metaphorically, I'm not saying that they are written specifically to these people, but to this type of response to the gospel. Where might they fall in? So if we're looking at these people over here in Hippos, Sisita, that we've been talking a little bit about in this back end, what gospel might we say, hey, that would kind of be the target audience? What gospel is written to who occupies this space?
Romans.
The Romans. Which one's the Roman gospel? Short, sweet, to the point. Your phone a friend is saying
Okay,
Mark.
Can you just keep talking?
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to have to answer questions.
This would be Mark. Now there is another one who's going to he's going to speak to a group of people, and he's going to try to marry it with the synagogue, but he's going to overwhelmingly say, hey, you need love, you need compassion, you need to care for people. And this is the Gospel of Luke. What group of people might we associate him to? I would have the tendency to throw him out here to Gamla and the Zealots. These people are passionate, but compassion is not their thing. Love and forgiveness is not high on their list. The Romans have come. It's time to kill them so we can get our land back. That's what they feel, right? So I would associate Luke kind of with this crowd. Then we get these religious Jews who have this certain understanding of what the scripture is, but they lack something, and they're going to be put on blast and challenged for that something that they're lacking in the book of Matthew. So where might we point the book of Matthew in this group? In the triangle. Yeah. Because Matthew is a Jewish writer writing to Jews. And then we still have something, we've got to do something with the Gospel of John. Where might we connect that group
I'm
to?
assuming the only one left.
Tiberias is what's left. And connecting this Gospel of John to intersect, this is you living in this Roman world. If you're a Jew, let this conversation impact you here. If you're buying into this Greco-Roman world, and you are greatly influenced, let this story influence you in a different way, right? And so we see differently how these different gospels and the different influence of the Holy Spirit can really impact a different group of people. But again, 80% of the work, the ministry life of Jesus is in that picture. It is staggering how close it is. Now, clearly, he goes to the wedding at Cana, goes over to Nazareth. He goes to Jerusalem a few times. There's another place he goes. Where did I write that down? Syrophoenicia, he goes over there too. Those things are not on this map, but 80% of what Jesus's ministry life happens right here on this picture. And so It's very, very close together, and we're gonna have some more conversations about it. Um, but it's going to be important for us to have a little bit of this geography as we begin next week walking through the book of Matthew and seeing these stories. So, um, Chelsea has a headache, and so we're not going to keep depending on her to. Yep. Thank you so much for joining us. Great ending to it. This is the end of our review, and we're going to dive back into the text starting next week. So join us and be a part.